I stood in the grand ballroom of the Grand Majestic Hotel, my fingers unconsciously tracing the gilded edges of the wedding invitation. The staff bustled around, adjusting lights and speakers, the glare of a spotlight momentarily blinding me. Hey, groom-to-be, is the height of this backdrop okay? The kid from the wedding planning company wiped sweat from his forehead, pointing to a giant heart-shaped decoration on the stage. I squinted. Raise it another 4 inches. Otherwise, it'll block half the LED screen in the photos. You got it. The kid briskly told his partner to make the adjustment. I glanced at my watch. For 20 p.m. Chloe and her bridesmaids should be arriving soon. They were supposed to do a final fitting for the dresses today. 7 days. In 7 days, I was going to marry Chloe Miller. A smile spread across my face. A 7-year relationship, finally reaching the finish line. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was Mom. Kai, how are things looking over at the hotel? Mom's familiar, booming voice came through the speaker. Everything's good, Mom. Chloe and the girls are almost here. We're just going over the schedule. Your father wanted me to ask. The bride side has 3 more relatives they want to add. The seating chart will have to be redone. I rubbed my temples. Fine, I'll fix it tonight. The invitations have already gone out, and now we're adding people. Oh, come on, it's a wedding. The more, the merrier, Mom interrupted. Oh, and remember to remind Chloe that her aunt is allergic to shellfish. The lobster at that table needs to be switched to. I was half listening, half muttering my agreement when I saw Chloe and her 4 bridesmaids walk into the ballroom, laughing. She was wearing a light blue sundress, her hair tied back in a casual ponytail. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, wrapping her in a golden glow. My heart skipped a beat, just like it did 7 years ago when I first saw her in the university library. Mom, Chloe's here. I'll call you back. We'll talk tonight. I hung up and walked toward her. She saw me, her eyes curving into crescents as she trotted the last few steps and threw herself into my arms. Miss me? She asked, tilting her head back, her familiar citrus perfume filling my senses. I smiled and tweaked her nose. It's only been 5 hours, Miss Miller. 5 hours is a long time, she said, wrinkling her nose. She turned to her friends. Girls, the bridesmaid dresses are in the changing room. Go try them on. Watching them chatter excitedly as they headed off, I felt a deep, solid sense of contentment. 30 years old, a stable career, a condo, a car, and about to marry the woman I'd loved for 7 years. In our small city, my life was the very picture of success. My phone buzzed again. Thinking it was Mom, I pulled it out, but it was a text from an unknown number. It contained only a TikTok link and a single sentence. See your fiancée for who she really is. I frowned. Spam? A wrong number? My thumb hovered over the screen for a second before curiosity won. I clicked the link. For the few seconds the video loaded, I was still thinking it might be some new kind of scam. Then the image appeared, and my blood ran cold. It was Chloe, unquestionably her. In a dimly lit karaoke lounge, she was straddling a man's lap, her arms wrapped around his neck as they kissed. The man's hands were roaming restlessly over her back. The video was only 15 seconds long, freezing in a final frame of Chloe leaning her head on the man's shoulder, smiling. The timestamp in the top right corner read 3 months ago. My hand started shaking uncontrollably. I almost dropped the phone. 3 months ago? We were already planning the wedding then. She was dragging me to see venues, try on tuxedos, and pick out party favors every weekend. That was the same month she'd excitedly shown me the custom design for our wedding invitations. Kyle! Chloe's voice came from behind me. What are you staring at? I spun around, instinctively hiding the phone behind my back. She tilted her head, her makeup perfect, her smile sweet. A world away from the girl letting loose in a stranger's arms in the video. In nothing, my voice was so dry it didn't sound like my own. A work email. Something complicated. She took a step closer, reaching out to touch my forehead. You look awful. Are you exhausted? I took a half step back, avoiding her touch. Maybe a little. You guys go on and try the dresses. I'm going to the restroom. Before she could reply, I practically fled the ballroom. In the men's room, I locked myself in a stall and opened the video again, zooming in on every detail. It was her. Absolutely her. The black top she was wearing was the one I bought for her birthday. The necklace was our anniversary gift. She was wearing the gifts I gave her while she was with another man. A wave of nausea hit me. I dry heaved a few times, resting my forehead against the cool metal of the stall door. Who sent this? Who was the man in the video? Well, else didn't I know? Kyle, are you in there? Chloe's voice, muffled by the restroom door, was accompanied by a soft knock. The wedding planner wants to confirm the schedule for tomorrow. I took a deep breath and flushed the toilet, pretending I just finished. Be right out. In the mirror, my face was ashen. I turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on my face hard. This wasn't the time to fall apart. There were too many people here. I needed to find out the truth. I needed to hear her explanation. I needed to know if my entire life was built on a lie. That night, I told Chloe I had an urgent work matter and didn't have dinner with her. Back at my condo, I sat in front of my computer, watching the 15-second clip over and over until every frame was burned in my memory. At 3 in the morning, I found the address of the karaoke lounge from a video. It was only 2 blocks from my office. And on that Friday, 3 months ago, Chloe had told me she was going to spa with her friends and wouldn't be having dinner with me. I closed my laptop and walked out onto the balcony. The early summer night breeze carried the scent of flowers, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. The wedding in 7 days, the 120 guests, the non-refundable deposit on our honeymoon, the newly furnished condo, and our 7 years together. I took out my phone, scrolled to the contacts saved as my wife, and held my finger over the call button, but I couldn't bring myself to press it. I stared at the glass door of the coffee shop, my fingers drumming an unconscious rhythm on the table. It was 10 minutes past our agreed-upon time, and Chloe Miller still hadn't shown up. When the waitress came by for the 3rd time to ask for my order, I just got a black coffee, no sugar. Outside, the sycamore trees rustled in the wind. The June sun filtered through the leaves, casting dappled light on the table. I pulled out my phone and played the video again. 15 seconds. I'd watched it at least 50 times, and each time it stung as much as the first. The shop door opened, and a small bell chimed. Chloe walked in, wearing the pale yellow sundress I loved, her hair loosely pinned up. She saw me, her face breaking into an immediate smile as she hurried over. "Sorry, traffic was a nightmare," she said, setting down her purse and sitting across from me. "Why the sudden coffee date? Weren't we supposed to go for a menu tasting tonight?" I looked into her eyes, which were filled with the familiar warmth and smile I knew so well. Just 3 days ago, that look would have made my heart melt. Now it just sent a chill down my spine. The waitress brought my coffee. Chloe ordered a latte. "Want a taste of mine?" she asked, a familiar habit, reaching for my cup. "No, thanks." I pushed my phone to the center of the table. The screen lit up, paused on the first frame of the video. "You should look at this first." Her gaze fell on the phone, and her expression froze. I saw her pupils contract, her lips tremble slightly. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back first. This is impossible." Her voice turned sharp. "It's fake. Kyle, someone definitely photoshopped this." I had a professional look at it. "There are no signs of editing," I said, my voice so calm it felt alien to me. "The timestamp is from a Friday night 3 months ago. The night you told me you were at a spa with friends." The color drained from her face. Her hands clenched into tight fists. "I can explain." "I'm listening." I picked up my coffee cup, only to realize my hand was shaking too much, so I put it back down. Tears suddenly welled up in Chloe's eyes, dropping one by one onto the table. "That day, we had a fight, remember? About the style of the wedding invitations." I remembered. We'd argued over whether to use champagne gold or rose gold. She'd slammed the door and didn't answer my texts all night. I was upset, so I went out for karaoke with some coworkers. I had too much to drink. I really just had too much to drink. She sobbed, her carefully applied makeup starting to run. "It was just that one time, I swear. Nothing happened after that." "Who is he?" My voice sounded like it was coming from far away. "A new project manager at my company. He was transferred to the Atlanta office later." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Kyle, I really only love you." It was a moment of weakness. Pre-wedding jitters, you know? I almost laughed out loud. Pre-wedding jitters? What a convenient excuse. 7 years, 120 invitations, and a $50,000 wedding budget, all for a moment of weakness. "How long did it last?" I asked, staring into her eyes. "Just that one time. Really, I swear." "Stop lying, Chloe." I cut her off. Starlight Karaoke has a membership system. I checked. That phone number booked a private room 6 times. Always on a Friday night. Her sobbing stopped abruptly, as if someone had hit pause. Then her whole body seemed to collapse. Her shoulders slumped, and her voice was barely a whisper. 2 months. 2 months. 8 Fridays. While we were picking out her dress, booking the hotel, and taking engagement photos, she was spending every Friday night making out with another man in a karaoke lounge. I felt a wave of dizziness and had to grip the edge of the table. The noise in the coffee shop faded into the distance, replaced by the frantic pounding of my own heart. "Kyle!" She reached for me again. "Don't touch me." I shot up from my chair, the legs scraping harshly against the floor. A few nearby tables turned to look. "The wedding is off. I'll call the hotel and the planners." You can't do this, she suddenly raised her voice. Over this one little thing? Who doesn't make mistakes? Are our 7 years together worth nothing? Little thing, I practically spat the words out. You were messing around with someone else for 2 months behind my back, and you call that a little thing? Nothing happened with him. We just kissed a few times when we were drunk. She bit her lip. I only love you. I pulled 2 bills from my wallet, slapped them on the table, and turned toward the door. She chased after me and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Let go, please. Her tears had ruined her makeup. My parents. The invitations have all been sent. Everyone knows we're getting married. I pried her fingers off my arm and pushed through the door without looking back. The little bell chimed again, drowning out her choked sobs. Back at my condo, I went straight to the study and locked the door. The wedding budget spreadsheet was still open on my computer, next to the seating chart and guest list. I closed the files one by one, feeling like I was disarming a bomb. My phone started vibrating nonstop. Chloe, then her best friend, then her mom. I switched it to silent and threw it on the couch. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my dad standing outside, his face grim. Dad, what happened? He asked as soon as I opened the door. Chloe's mother just called your mom, crying her eyes out, said you were calling off the wedding. I stepped aside to let him in, then closed the door. She cheated on me. My dad looked like he'd been punched. What? It started 3 months ago, with a project manager from her company. I walked back to the study and showed him the video. After watching it, my dad took off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. Are you sure this is real? Not some kind of prank? I checked. It's 100% real. Damn. He sighed heavily. Your mother. The doorbell rang again. This time it was my mom, her eyes red. Behind her were Chloe's parents. Kyle, Mrs. Miller rushed in and grabbed my hands. Chloe told us everything. It was a misunderstanding. Young people drink too much sometimes. It's normal. I pulled my hands away and looked at Chloe's father. He stood by the door, his face as dark as a sky before a storm. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I've made my decision. The wedding is canceled. Kai, Mrs. Miller's voice was tearful. Who doesn't make a few mistakes when they're young? Chloe knows she was wrong. Can't you just give her one more chance? 2 months. Every Friday. I said coldly. This wasn't a one-time mistake. Mrs. Miller turned to my parents. John, Mary, talk to your son. 7 years together, you can't just throw it all away. My mom bit her lip and said nothing. My dad cleared his throat. This is really up to the kids to decide. What do you mean decide? Mr. Miller finally spoke, his voice hard as iron. My daughter has been with your son for 7 years, gave him the best years of her life, and now he dumps her over one little mistake? Is this how the Thompson family does things? I felt the blood rush to my head. Mr. Miller, you call this a little mistake? A man needs to be more forgiving. Mr. Miller raised his voice. Young people date around these days. Who doesn't have a little fun? Once you're married, you settle down. I finally understood where Chloe got her sense of righteous indignation. Sorry, I can't do that. I turned to Mrs. Miller. Ma'am, I'll cover the deposits for the hotel and the wedding planners. For everything else, please have Chloe contact my lawyer directly. A lawyer? Mrs. Miller gasped. Does it have to come to this? Mr. Miller pulled his wife away. Let's go. If they don't appreciate our daughter, we don't need to be here begging. He turned to me, his eyes fierce. Kyle, you will regret this. They slammed the door, leaving an awkward silence in the room. My mom finally started to cry. My dad put his arm around her, looking at me helplessly. Mom, the invitations have all been sent. What are we going to tell everyone? Just say we weren't compatible, I said, rubbing my temples wearily. I'm going to get some sleep. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind wide awake. The phone on the couch was still vibrating, though less frequently now. I got up, opened my laptop, and started a checklist of everything that needed to be canceled. The hotel, the planners, the photographer, the honeymoon flights. One cancellation after another, one penalty fee after another. The money wasn't the issue. The issue was the gossip that was sure to follow. In a city this small, calling off a wedding was a bigger spectacle than getting a divorce. The next morning, I went to work with dark circles under my eyes. As soon as I walked into the office, my colleague Mark sidled up to me. Heard you called off the wedding, he whispered. Is it true? The folder in my hand nearly slipped. How did you know? My wife is co-workers with Chloe's cousin. He scratched his head awkwardly. Actually, I've been meaning to tell you something. I looked up sharply. Tell me what? Mark glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Last month, I was at Starlight Karaoke for a buddy's reunion. I saw Chloe with some guy at the entrance to one of the rooms. They were pretty close. I figured it was a relative or something. Starlight Karaoke. The same place from the video. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? Dude, that kind of thing. Without proof, how could I say anything? Mark patted my shoulder. Besides, what if it was a misunderstanding? I managed a nod and walked to my desk. A few of the women in the office were whispering in a corner. They immediately scattered when they saw me. I knew the news was out. During my lunch break, I drove to Starlight Karaoke. The place was deserted during the day. The girl at the front desk was staring at her phone. Hi, I'd like to check a booking record from 3 months ago, I said directly. Without looking up, she replied, sorry, customer privacy. I took out my wallet and slid $500 bills across the counter. Just check the booking history for one phone number. She quickly pocketed the money and typed on her computer. 888. 5,588. Booked a medium room 6 times, all on Friday nights. Do you have security footage? We keep it for a month, then it's automatically overwritten. She looked me over curiously. Are you a cop? No. I turned and left, the last shred of hope gone. Back in the company parking lot, I sat in my car and scrolled through my text history with Chloe. During the 2 months she was cheating, she was enthusiastically discussing wedding details with me, even sending me links to honeymoon packages. Honey, what do you think of this dress? Babe, my cousin said this resort in the Maldives is perfect for a honeymoon. Just had my makeup trial today. The artist said a peachy glow look is perfect for me. Each message was like a knife in my heart. How could she be intimate with someone else while so casually planning our future with me? 7 years. How well did I even know her? My phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Kyle, it's me. Chloe's voice was hoarse, like she hadn't slept all night. Can we talk again? Just once, please. There's nothing to talk about. That video. Who sent it to you? She asked suddenly. I froze. I'd been so consumed by the cheating that I'd completely forgotten to question the source of the video. You don't know? I think it was Tina, from the front desk at my office. She's always had a thing for you. Chloe's voice was choked with tears. She did it to break us up. I almost laughed. So now it's someone else's fault for exposing you? Chloe, if you hadn't done it, who could break us up? I know I was wrong. She started sobbing again. But are you really going to throw away 7 years of our relationship over this one thing? It's not this one thing. I took a deep breath. You destroyed my trust in you. Without trust, what is a relationship? The line went silent for a long moment before she finally said, You'll regret this. After hanging up, I leaned back in my seat, feeling a strange sense of calm. Yes, 7 years was a long time, but that's what made the betrayal so unforgivable. 3 days. For 3 whole days, I was a zombie shuttling between home and the office. My phone had over 100 unread messages and more than 20 missed calls. I hadn't responded to a single one. At the office, my colleagues' gazes followed me like searchlights. The moment I approached the break room, the usual chatter would die down. I knew what they were talking about. There are no secrets in a small city, especially not breaking news like the only son of the Thompson family calling off his wedding. I stood at the copier, mechanically turning pages. Mark quietly approached and handed me a cup of coffee. Hang in there, man, he said under his breath. If you need to, we can grab a drink tonight. I was about to answer when my department head, Mr. Evans, poked his head out of his office. Kyle, can I see you for a minute? Mr. Evans's office was spacious and bright, with a view of the city center. He motioned for me to sit while he leaned against his desk, tapping his fingers on the surface. I hear you've canceled your wedding, he said, getting straight to the point. I nodded, my throat tight. Yes, Mr. Evans. I normally wouldn't pry into personal matters, he sighed. But your work performance these last few days. The legal department has reported several errors in the contracts you've reviewed. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I'll be more careful. The company values you highly, Mr. Evans said, pushing up his glasses. But the project won't wait. The proposal for the Crestview development is due next week, and you're the lead on it. I understand. It won't affect my work. Mr. Evans stared at me for a few seconds, as if gauging the sincerity of my promise. Why don't you take 3 days off? Get your personal affairs in order. That's not necessary, sir. Work helps keep my mind off things. Leaving his office, I went straight to the restroom and splashed cold water on my face. The man in the mirror had bloodshot eyes and a dark stubble on his chin. In just 3 days, I looked like I'd aged 5 years. Back at my desk, I forced myself to dive into the Crestview proposal. Numbers, clauses, regulations. These cold, hard facts were so much simpler than people. At least they wouldn't betray you. When I left work, a light rain had begun to fall. I didn't have an umbrella and didn't care, walking slowly, letting the rain soak my shirt. I passed a bridal shop, the mannequin in the window dressed in a pristine white gown, a perpetual smile on her face. Chloe and I had been to this shop. She tried on 3 dresses and picked the most expensive one, a lace train with hand-sewn crystals, priced at $8,000. My phone vibrated. I pulled it out. Mom. It was the 7th missed call from her today. Hello, Mom. Kai. Her voice was tearful. Where are you? Why aren't you answering your phone? Just left work, walking home. Are you getting wet? The forecast said rain. I told you to take an umbrella. Mom. I interrupted. I'm fine. What's up? There was a pause. Chloe's mother is here, at our house. She won't stop crying. She says she wants to see you. A knot formed in my stomach. I'm not coming home tonight. I'm going to stay at Jake's. Kai. My mom's voice dropped. This whole thing. Have you really thought it through? Mom. I stopped walking, the rain streaming down my face. If Dad cheated on you, would you forgive him? I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I understand. Go to Jake's. I'll bring you some clean clothes. After hanging up, I changed direction and headed for my cousin Jake's apartment. Jake was 2 years younger than me, a programmer at a tech company in an industrial park. He was laid back and easygoing, exactly the kind of company I needed right now. When Jake opened the door, he was holding a half-eaten slice of pizza. Dude, his eyes widened. What the hell happened to you? I didn't say a word, just walked in and collapsed on his couch. Jake's apartment looked like it had been hit by a bomb, but it was surprisingly relaxing. No wedding albums, no invitation samples, no traces of a suffocating, happy future. Heard you called off the wedding, Jake said, handing me a beer. Badass, man. I gave a weak smile, popped the tab, and took a long swallow. Mom and Dad tell you. The whole city knows, dude. Jake waved his arms dramatically. My mom called yesterday and yelled for an hour about family honor. I just hung up. I rubbed my temples. My aunt was notoriously obsessed with appearances. This must have been a huge embarrassment for her among her bridge club friends. So, Jake leaned in, lowering his voice. Did Chloe really cheat? I took out my phone, pulled up the video, and handed it to him. Jake watched it and let out a low whistle. Whoa, that's intense. Who sent it to you? Anonymous number, I said, taking the phone back. Untraceable. That guy looks kind of familiar. Jake frowned and thought. I think I've seen him somewhere. I sat up straight. You know him? Can't place him. Jake scratched his head. Maybe it's some work dinner? Definitely not a good guy. Anyway, messing with an engaged woman. I sank back into the couch, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. I'd barely slept in 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that video. Dude, you gotta pull yourself together. Jake patted my shoulder. She's not worth it. Hey. He suddenly jumped up and ran to his desk. There's a new fintech company that opened up in our industrial park. They're hiring a director of risk management. Pays 30% more than your current gig. Want to give it a shot? He handed me a crumpled flyer. I glanced at it. The offer was tempting, but the job was in Port Blossom, over 100 miles away. It's too far. Far is good, Jake said excitedly. New place, new start. What's there to stay for in this dead-end town? Everybody knows everybody, and every little thing gets blown out of proportion. I stared at the flyer, my mind drifting. Port Blossom, a coastal city I'd visited once in college. I remembered a long coastline and rows of palm trees. I'll think about it. I stuffed the flyer in my pocket. I'm crashing here tonight. The next morning, I went straight to the office, taking a route that avoided any potential run-ins with acquaintances. The Crestview proposal had one last section to finish, and I needed to focus. At noon, I was staring blankly at my computer screen when the front desk called to say I had a visitor. I assumed it was a delivery, but when I got to the lobby, I saw Chloe. She lost weight. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her face, bare of makeup, was a sickly pale. She hurried toward me, but was stopped by security. Just 5 minutes, she pleaded. Kyle, please. I signaled for the guard to let her pass and led her to the coffee shop next door. She followed close behind, as if afraid I'd disappear. After ordering, we sat in a corner booth. Chloe cradled her cup, her knuckles white. Did my parents go to your house? I asked bluntly. She nodded, tears dropping into her coffee. They were too impulsive. I just wanted to apologize to you in person. Don't bother. We said everything that needs to be said. Kyle. She reached for me, and I pulled away. I know I was wrong. I really do. Can't you give us one more chance? 7 years. We were together for 7 years. And you know it's been 7 years. My voice rose unintentionally. Is that how little our 7 years meant to you? A few people in a coffee shop turned to look. Chloe shrank back, her voice dropping to a whisper. It was a moment of weakness. You're always so busy with work, I felt neglected. He just said a few nice things. So this is my fault? I scoffed. Because I was too busy working, you had to find another man? No, that's not what I mean. She shook her head frantically. I don't know what I'm saying. Kyle, I really love you. I can't live without you. I looked at her, hysterical and broken, and suddenly felt a profound sense of exhaustion. This wasn't the Chloe I knew. The girl I knew was confident, cheerful, and independent. She wouldn't grovel for anyone. We're over. I stood up. I'll take care of the cancellation fees for the hotel and planners. Everything else, we'll handle on our own. Wait, she grabbed my wrist. That video. Who sent it to you? Was it Tina? She's always had a crush on you. I shook her hand off. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the video is real. Walking out of the coffee shop, the sun was so bright it hurt my eyes. My phone vibrated. It was Mom. Kai, where are you? Chloe's mother is here again. She even brought gifts. Mom, I interrupted. Don't let them in. I'm on my way home. When I got to my parents' house, I could hear crying from inside. I pushed open the door to see Mrs. Miller sitting on our couch, several expensive-looking gift boxes piled in front of her. My mom stood nearby, looking awkward. When she saw me, Mrs. Miller immediately shot up, tears still on her face. Kai is back. Mrs. Miller. I nodded, offering nothing more. Kai, I'm begging you. She suddenly dropped to her knees. I was so startled, I rushed to help her up. Chloe hasn't eaten or slept in days. She's a wreck. 7 years together. You can't just let it end like this. Mrs. Miller, please don't do this. I managed to pull her back to her feet. What's done is done. There's no going back. Who doesn't make mistakes when they're young? Mrs. Miller clung to my hand. Chloe knows she was wrong. Really. Can't you forgive her this one time? I looked at my mom, who gave a slight, conflicted shake of her head. Mrs. Miller, I took a deep breath. If you found out Mr. Miller had been cheating on you for 2 months, would you forgive him? Mrs. Miller's expression froze. Her hands slowly let go, and she sank onto the couch like a deflated balloon. That's different, she mumbled. We're from a different generation. Love doesn't have generations, I said calmly. Please go home, Mrs. Miller, and give my regards to Mr. Miller. After she left, silence fell over the house. My mom sat at the dining table, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. Mom, I'm sorry, I said quietly, for causing you and Dad all this trouble. Silly boy. She looked up, her eyes red. It's our fault for not looking after you better, for letting you get hurt like this. I walked over and hugged her, smelling the familiar scent of laundry detergent on her clothes. Whenever I was hurt as a kid, that smell always made me feel safe. I've decided, I said, I'm canceling the wedding. I'll take care of all the financial losses. My mom gently patted my back, just like she did when she was lulling me to sleep as a child. As long as you're sure, your dad and I will always support you. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept well. The next day was Saturday. I woke up early and started dealing with the aftermath of the cancellation. The hotel manager's voice turned cold the moment I told him. Mr. Thompson, do you have any idea how many other bookings we turned down for your date? The deposit is non-refundable. I know. We'll follow the contract. The wedding planners were a bit more understanding, but they made it clear that the cost for materials already produced and vendor fees already paid could not be refunded. The bridal shop was the most straightforward. The deposit was non-refundable, but they could offer the date to another couple. After a series of calls, the financial damage exceeded $10,000. The money wasn't the issue. The issue was having to explain the reason over and over again. The wedding's been canceled. I must have said that line 20 times, and each time it felt like pouring salt on a wound. At noon, my dad came home looking grim. Ran into Robert Miller, he said, taking off his jacket and slumping onto the couch. At the farmer's market. I stopped what I was doing. What did he say? Said our family has no integrity, that we ruined his daughter's reputation. Dad shook his head. Also said, well, no point in repeating ugly words. I clenched my fists. I'm sorry, Dad. What are you sorry for? Dad glared at me. It's their family that failed to raise their daughter right. And he has the nerve to talk. The doorbell rang. My mom answered it, and I heard Jake's booming voice. Uncle John, Aunt Mary, I came to see you. Jake burst in and grinned when he saw me. Dude, you're here. Let's go, I'm taking you out. Where? He was already pulling me to my feet. There's a new archery range in the industrial park. My treat. He winked at my parents. Don't worry, I'll bring him back in one piece. The archery range wasn't crowded. Jake picked a lane at the far end. I'd never tried archery before, but surprisingly, I got the hang of it quickly. Draw, aim, release. The simple, repetitive motion was strangely calming. Feels good, right? Jake said proudly. Better than drinking. I nodded and drew the bow again. The arrow flew, hitting the bullseye. Nice shot. Jake clapped. Dude, you should really think about that job I mentioned yesterday. Port Blossom is great. Ocean, sunshine. I put down the bow and wiped the sweat from my brow. Are you serious? Of course. Jake leaned in. I'll already polish your resume for you. Just email it to their HR. He winked. You've got nothing tying you down here now. Why not go for a new adventure? Nothing tying me down. The words hit me like an arrow. It was true. 7 years of my life, a month of intense planning, all gone up in smoke. Every corner of this city held a memory of Chloe. If I stayed, I would never truly move on. Send me the HR email, I said. I'll send my resume tonight. Jake let out a whoop, drawing stares from the people around us. I couldn't help but smile. It was the first genuine smile in 3 days. That evening, I revised my resume as Jake suggested and sent it off. The moment I clicked send, I felt a sense of relief, as if I had finally made a positive decision for my future. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Did you like the video? There's more where that came from. Interested, my blood ran cold. It was the mystery person again. Today was supposed to be my wedding day. I woke up at 5, staring at the ceiling. According to the original plan, I should have been getting ready to go pick up my bride. The limo would be decorated with flowers, the groomsmen would be cracking jokes, and the air would be thick with excitement and anticipation. Now, there was just me, alone in the quiet darkness. My phone screen lit up. A text from Mom. Honey, do you want to come over for dinner tonight? I didn't reply, just tossed the phone aside. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. A few early birds chirped on the branches. I got out of bed, threw on a t-shirt and jeans, and grabbed my car keys. The streets were empty. I drove aimlessly, and before I knew it, I was on the highway. The dashboard read 6:20 a.m. Around this time, the makeup artist would have been starting on Chloe's face. I shook my head, trying to banish the thought. A sign for Emerald Lake Park appeared ahead. I flicked on my turn signal and exited the highway. Emerald Lake was a popular spot for weekend trips, but on a weekday morning, it was nearly deserted. I parked by the lake and rolled down the window. The damp, earthy air immediately filled the car. The water's surface shimmered, and the distant mountains were soft silhouettes in the morning mist. I pulled out my phone and went to the album labeled Wedding Prep. It held hundreds of photos. The moment Chloe turned around while trying on her dress, a selfie we took while picking out party favors, a candid shot of her putting food on my plate during the menu tasting. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but I couldn't press it. I locked the phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. A few joggers passed on the lakeside path, casting curious glances at my lone car. I started the engine and continued driving along the winding road that circled the lake. 7 years. We met in college, survived 2 years of long distance after graduation, and moved back to our hometown together. We bought a condo, got engaged. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. We rarely even fought. Whenever we had a disagreement, I was always the first to apologize. I thought that was what love was supposed to be, stable calm, a slow-flowing river. Looking back, maybe that calmness was our undoing. Chloe always said I was too rational, not romantic enough. I believed life was about the day-to-day grind, not grand gestures. A sign for a scenic overlook appeared. I parked and walked to the railing. From here, you could see the entire lake, its surface glittering gold in the morning sun. I took a deep breath and realized it was the first time I'd been able to breathe properly since this all began. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Jake. Dude, where are you? His voice was full of energy. He'd clearly forgotten what day it was. Emerald Lake. Just clearing my head. Oh. He paused, obviously remembering. Hey, that company in Port Blossom emailed back. They want to know when you can interview. Really? When did they send it? Last night. I was going to tell you at noon. His voice softened. Are you doing okay today? Better than I thought. I gazed at the lake. Tell them I'm available anytime. After hanging up, I stood at the overlook for a little longer. A few wild ducks swam on the water, leaving ripples in their wake. Life was like this lake, seemingly calm on the surface, but with hidden currents underneath. Maybe leaving was the best choice. On the way back, traffic had picked up. While waiting a red light, I saw a young couple in the car next to me. The girl was leaning on the boy's shoulder, and he kept bending down to kiss her forehead. I looked away and floored it when the light turned green. It was almost 11 when I got home. I had just parked when I saw my dad standing at the entrance to our building, his face grim. Dad, what are you doing here? The Millers are here, he said in a low voice. Robert Miller is sitting upstairs. He does not look happy. Robert Miller was Chloe's father. My future father-in-law, once upon a time. I took a deep breath and followed my dad upstairs. When we opened the door, I saw Mr. Miller sitting stiffly on our living room couch, a cup of untouched tea in front of him. My mom stood nervously by the kitchen doorway. Mr. Miller. I nodded in greeting. Mr. Miller stood up. He was wearing a dark blue shirt that made him look particularly stern. Kyle, I came today to have a serious talk with you. Go ahead. The news about the wedding being canceled is all over town, he said, his voice low. Chloe hasn't dared to leave the house in days. Her mother has been crying nonstop. I normally wouldn't interfere in your affairs, but when it gets to this point, how are we supposed to show our faces in public? I clench my fists. Mr. Miller, I think you have it wrong. Chloe is the one who made the mistake, not me. Who doesn't make mistakes when they're young? Mr. Miller's voice rose. Are you telling me you've never done anything wrong in your life? Making a mistake and betrayal are two different things, I said, looking him straight in the eye. And can you really call a mistake that went on for 2 months a moment of weakness? Mr. Miller's face turned a dark shade of red. Fine, very fine. The Thompson boy has grown wings now, hasn't he? No respect for his elders. He turned to my dad. John, is this the fine son you raised? My dad stepped forward, standing between us. Robert, you can't say that. Your daughter was in the wrong. It's my son's right to end the relationship. His right. Mr. Miller sneered. He's ruined my daughter's reputation. The whole city is gossiping about Chloe now, and the Thompson family just washes its hands of the whole mess. I'm not the one spreading gossip, I said calmly. And I'm not the one who filmed the video. What video? Mr. Miller suddenly froze. What video are you talking about? My parents and I exchanged a look. It seemed Chloe hadn't told her father about the video. It's nothing, I said, deciding to leave Chloe one last shred of dignity. Mr. Miller, things are what they are. Let's just part ways amicably. Mr. Miller stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly grabbed the teacup from the coffee table and smashed it on the floor. Porcelain shards scattered, and tea stained the rug. Kyle, he pointed a finger at my face. You remember this day? The Miller family will not let this go. He slammed the door on his way out, leaving a tense silence. My mom knelt to pick up the pieces, her shoulders trembling slightly. Ma, I went to help. Don't touch it, she said sharply. You'll cut yourself. I knew she wasn't angry at me, just venting. My dad sighed and went to get a mop from the balcony. That company emailed back, I said, breaking the silence. They want me to interview. My mom's hand paused. Which company? The one in Port Blossom. The fintech one. That's so far, she said quietly, but she didn't object. My dad nodded. It might be good to try. A change of scenery. I knew they didn't want me to leave, but they wanted even less to see me suffering here. A lump formed in my throat. In the afternoon, I drove to the office. The building was empty on a weekend, except for the security guard dozing at the front desk. I swiped my key card, went to my desk, and got to work. The Crestview proposal still needed finishing touches. I opened my laptop and forced myself to focus on the numbers and clauses on the screen. Work was the best anesthetic. At least it could make me temporarily forget what day this was supposed to be. Around 5 o'clock, the office door opened. I looked up to see Mr. Evans standing there, holding a stack of files. Kyle, I didn't think you'd be in today. He walked in and placed the files on my desk. Good timing. These are the latest design changes for Crestview. Take a look. I nodded and took the files. Mr. Evans didn't leave right away. He pulled up a chair and sat down. Today was your original wedding day, wasn't it? He asked hesitantly. Small town. No secrets. I grunted in affirmation, my eyes fixed on the computer screen. There's a training seminar in Austin next week. 2 weeks long, Mr. Evans said suddenly. I'm thinking of sending you. I looked up at him. Why? You haven't been yourself lately, he said bluntly. A change of scenery, a chance to reset. You'll be back just in time for the Crestview bidding. I knew he was offering me an out. The training was just an excuse to get me away from the local gossip. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Don't thank me, he said, standing up. The company has invested a lot in you. I don't want to see it go to waste. After he left, I continued working on the proposal until the city lights came on outside. My phone lit up. A message in my old high school group chat. The class president, Matt, had tagged everyone. Class reunion tonight, 7 p.m. at the usual spot. RSVP. I glanced at my watch, 6:40. Suddenly, the thought of going home to my parents' worried faces was unbearable. I replied, count me in, packed my things, and left the office. The usual spot was a hot pot restaurant near our old school where we'd gathered a few times a year since graduation. When I arrived, the private room was already filled with a dozen people and buzzing with conversation. Hey, look who it is. The groom. Matt was the first to spot me, his voice booming. The words were barely out of his mouth when he realized his mistake, his face freezing in an awkward grimace. The room fell silent. All eyes were on me. I forced a calm expression and walked to an empty seat. It's fine, everyone. Let's just eat. I picked up a menu. I'm starving. Let's order. The atmosphere slowly returned to normal, but I could feel everyone deliberately avoiding topics like relationships and marriage. After a few rounds of drinks, the conversation shifted to work and life. Kyle, I hear you're up for a promotion, someone named Leo asked from across the table. Not yet, I answered briefly. How's Chloe doing these days? A girl suddenly asked. I haven't seen her in ages. The table went quiet again. The girl who asked was clearly out of the loop, looking confused by everyone's awkward expressions. We broke up, I said calmly. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, she stammered. It's okay. I took a sip of my beer. The wedding's off. The topic landed like a boulder in a calm lake. I could feel my classmates exchanging surreptitious glances. I'm going to use the restroom. I stood up, desperate for some air. At the end of the hallway was a small balcony. I pushed the door open, stepped outside, and lit a cigarette. It was the first one I'd had in a month. The harsh smoke made me cough. Mind if I join you? A woman's voice came from behind me. I turned to see a girl with a ponytail leaning against the doorframe. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, a faint smile on her face. Sophie. I recognized her as our high school's academic superstar. Of course not. She walked over and took a small tin of mints from her purse. Trying to quit, she explained. But you look like you just started. Just about. I stubbed out the cigarette. Why'd you come out? It was getting stuffy in there, she said, leaning against the railing. Besides, the gossip was getting a little too thick. I gave a bitter smile. I'm the city's biggest gossip right now. Don't worry about it, she said, offering me a mint. That's how small towns are. A tiny bit of news can last for 6 months. I took the mint and a memory clicked. Hey, I heard you open a coffee shop in Port Blossom. How'd you know that? She raised an eyebrow in surprise. Jake told me. He went to Port Blossom on a business trip last month and happened to stop by your place. Small world, she smiled. Yeah, it's been open for 2 years. It's called Half Sugar. You should come by sometime. I actually might. I hesitated. A company there asked me to interview. Really? Her eyes lit up. Which one? Innovate FinTech in the industrial park. I know that area. It's just 2 subway stops from my shop, she said, pulling out her phone. Let's exchange numbers. If you end up moving, coffee's on me. We swapped contact info. The door to the private room opened, and Matt poked his head out. There you guys are. They just brought out the cake. Back in the room, the mood had lifted. Everyone tacitly avoided my situation and moved on to other topics. Sophie sat next to me, quietly filling me in on conversations I'd missed. The party broke up after 10. We said our goodbyes at the restaurant entrance. Kyle, Sophie said before she left, if you really do come to Port Blossom, be sure to look me up. I nodded, watching her walk toward the subway station. We hadn't been close in high school. She was a brainiac. I was on the basketball team. Our social circles never overlapped. I never would have thought we'd reconnect like this, at one of the lowest points in my life. My parents were asleep when I got home. A note on the coffee table read, "There's soup in the pot. Remember to eat. Love, Mom." I ladled a bowl of the still warm pork and lotus root soup and sat at the table. My phone vibrated. A text from Jake. Dude, the interview is set. Next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Want me to book your flight? I replied, yes. Putting down the phone, I walked out onto the balcony. The night sky was full of stars, and the city lights below mirrored them. Next Wednesday, if the interview went well, my life would take a completely new direction. And today was supposed to have been the happiest day of my life. The training in Austin was more useful than I'd expected. For 2 weeks, I spent my days in lectures and my evenings reviewing notes, leaving little time to think about anything else. On the flight back, I finally checked my email. I'd gotten the job at Innovate FinTech in Port Blossom. The offer was a 40% raise from my current salary, plus stock options. Stepping out of the airport, the June heat hit me. I took a deep breath and called Jake. I'm taking the job. I'm moving to Port Blossom. Awesome. Jake practically yelled into the phone. When are you leaving? I'll help you pack. Probably next week. I have to talk to my company first. After hanging up, I went straight to the office. Mister. Evans raised an eyebrow when he saw me. How was Austin? Very insightful. I handed him my training certificate. Mr. Evans, I'd like to request a transfer to the Port Blossom branch. Mr. Evans's expression froze. Port Blossom? We only have a small satellite office there. We don't need a director of risk management. Then I'll have to resign. Silence filled the office. Mr. Evans took off his glasses and slowly polished the lenses. Is it because of that? Partly, I admitted, but it's mainly for my career development. Kyle, Mr. Evans sighed. The company has invested a lot in you. The Crestview project is about to go to bid, and you're the lead. The proposal is 95% complete. Leo can take over the rest. He's more than capable. Mr. Evans stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled. It seems you've had this plan for a while. He opened a drawer and took out a document. This is the organizational chart for the branch offices. Port Blossom does need a risk manager, but the position is a step down from headquarters. I took the document and scanned it. The title was Deputy Director of Risk Management, and the salary was only a 10% increase. But there was a key clause. High-performing individuals are eligible for transfer back to headquarters as director within 2 years. Well, Mr. Evans asked, compared to resigning and joining a new company, this is a much safer bet, don't you think? I looked up at him and suddenly understood. You had this ready all along. The Austin training is part of the succession plan for headquarters. Mr. Evans smiled. You were the first name on the list. So, this wasn't an escape. It was a promotion. Life could be ironic sometimes. A week later, I started packing up my condo. 7 years' worth of stuff was more than I'd imagined, especially things related to Chloe. Picture frames, matching mugs, a hair tie she'd left behind, souvenirs from our trips. I sat on the floor, 2 boxes in front of me. One labeled keep, the other toss. The picture frames went into the toss box, as did the mugs. I wrapped the hair tie around my finger a few times before it finally slipped into the keep box. It wasn't that I couldn't let go. It just felt unnecessary to erase every single memory. The relationship had been real. It had been good for a time. It just didn't have a happy ending. The doorbell rang. Jake stood outside with 2 bags of takeout. One last meal before the big move. He shook the bags. Your favorite barbecue brisket from downstairs. We sat on the floor amidst half-packed boxes, eating. You're a legend, man, Jake said, chewing on a rib. If it were me, I probably would have just sucked it up and gotten married. Then you'd be an idiot, I said, putting a piece of brisket in his bowl. You can't compromise on marriage. How are your parents holding up? Better than I expected. I thought about our conversation last night. My mom had tearfully pressed a debit card in my hand, and my dad had silently polished my toolbox until it shone. It was his birthday gift to me last year. They're coming next week to help me with the move. Port Blossom is great, Jake said, trying to lighten the mood. The seafood shack by the beach is insane. Oh, and you remember Sophie, right? Her coffee shop is right near your new office. I nodded, thinking of our brief conversation at the reunion. She seemed to be the only person I knew in the new life I was about to begin. On moving day, my parents arrived at 6 in the morning. Mom brought a huge bag of homemade pickles and preserved vegetables, while Dad inspected every box I'd packed to make sure it was secure. Take this toolbox, he said, placing the gleaming metal box in the trunk. It gets humid in Port Blossom. You'll need to maintain your tools. I know, Dad. My mom did one last sweep of the condo, then stopped in the middle of the living room, her eyes welling up. 7 years. Since you first rented this place after college. I walked over and put my arm around her shoulder. Mom, it's not like I'm never coming back. Have you found a place to rent there? She asked, wiping her eyes. The company is providing a temporary apartment. I'll find something more permanent once I'm settled. After the last box was loaded, I stood in the empty condo, looking around. Faint squares on the walls where pictures used to hang, indentations on the floor from furniture, scuff marks on the kitchen counter. The traces of 7 years of life, so easily erased. Before locking the door for the last time, I took one final look at the place that had seen me transition from student to an adult. Here, Chloe and I had cooked, watched movies, argued, and made up. Now, those memories, along with the key, would be returned to the landlord. Port Blossom was a 3-hour drive. The entire way, my mom recited a list of instructions. Don't eat too much takeout. Remember to air out your bedding. Call us every weekend. My dad focused on driving, occasionally chiming in. We're here, my dad said, parking in front of a gray apartment building. This is it, right? I checked the address. Yep, this is the place. The company apartment was on the 15th floor, a 1-bedroom with basic furniture. From the balcony, you could see the distant ocean and rows of red-roofed houses. Not bad, my dad said, satisfied after a quick tour. My mom went straight to the kitchen and started filling the fridge with the food she'd brought. This should last you a week. Remember to eat the fish in the freezer before Friday. I finished with a smile. I know, Mom. After they were settled in, I took them out for dinner at a bustling seafood shack filled with the aroma of chili and garlic. My parents were clearly not used to the noisy environment, but did their best to look cheerful. Eat up, I said, giving my mom a shrimp. I hear this is a local specialty. She forced a smile and took a small bite. You're all alone here. You don't know anyone. I have colleagues, and I thought of Sophie. I have a high school classmate who runs a coffee shop here, not far from my office. A classmate? A guy or a girl? My mom asked immediately. A girl. She was the class valedictorian, I said nonchalantly. Just a regular classmate. My dad gave me a knowing look, but said nothing. After my parents left, my life as a single man truly began. The first challenge was the local dialect, which sounded like a foreign language. The second was the pace of life. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry. On Monday morning, I went to the office. The Port Blossom branch was much smaller than headquarters. The HR manager introduced me to my new colleagues, who were polite but distant. My office was a glass-walled cubicle with a view of the distant harbor. On the desk was a stack of files and a note. "Welcome to the team, Mr. Evans." It turned out Mr. Evans had arranged everything. Work was busier than I'd anticipated. As the Deputy Director of Risk Management, I had to familiarize myself with all local partner banks and projects within a month. By the time I got home each day, my brain felt completely drained. On Friday night, I was scrolling through my phone on the couch when I saw Sophie's Facebook post, "Half Sugar Weekend Special, Sea Salt Caramel Latte plus Tiramisu Set." The photo showed a cozy, minimalist coffee shop. In the reflection of a mirror in the corner, I could see Sophie's profile as she prepared coffee. After a moment's hesitation, I sent her a message. "Free tomorrow afternoon? I'd like to try that sea salt caramel latte." The reply was almost immediate. "Of course." It's quietest around 3 p.m. The next afternoon, I followed the GPS to Half Sugar. A small bell chimed as I opened the door. The shop was filled with warm sunlight. "Kyle." Sophie poked her head out from behind the counter, her ponytail swinging. "Find a seat. I'll be right with you." I chose a corner table by the window and looked around. The walls were decorated with hand-drawn posters and customer Polaroids. A bookshelf held a curated selection of books and magazines. "Sorry for the wait." Sophie came over with a tray, setting down 2 coffees and a slice of cake. On the house, my signature. She was wearing a light blue apron dotted with cute pins. Before I could speak, she continued, "So, are you getting used to Port Blossom?" "It's a bit of a struggle," I admitted. "I can't understand the local dialect, and the pace is so fast." "That's normal. I was the same when I first got here," she said with a smile, taking a sip of her coffee. "Now, I don't think I could get used to going back." We talked about our high school classmates, her story of opening the shop, and my new job. When Sophie talked, her eyes would crinkle at the corners, and when she got excited, she'd gesture with her hands. "By the way," she said, "there's a city walking tour tomorrow through the Old Town District. Want to come? It's a good way to meet new people." I was about to decline, but seeing the hopeful look in her eyes, I found myself nodding. At 9 on Sunday morning, we gathered in the Old Town Square. The organizer was a white-haired gentleman who called himself the living map of Port Blossom. There were about 20 people, mostly young. "This is Kyle, my high school classmate," Sophie introduced me. "He just moved to Port Blossom." "Welcome," a girl with glasses said warmly. "I'm Linda, one of Sophie's regulars." The tour wound through the cobblestone alleys of the old town, with the old man explaining the history of each building. Sophie walked beside me, adding interesting tidbits. "That red brick building," she pointed to a vine-covered structure, "used to be a post office. Now it's a bookstore. The owner is a friend of mine. I'll take you there sometime." I nodded, suddenly realizing it was the first time I'd felt genuinely relaxed since everything had happened. The sun, the breeze, the unfamiliar streets, the new friends. It all helped me temporarily forget the shadows of the past. The tour ended in the afternoon. People started making plans for lunch. Sophie was pulled away by a few friends to try a new Vietnamese restaurant. She turned to me and asked, "Want to join?" "Maybe next time," I declined. "I have some work to catch up on." "Well, how about Wednesday night?" She seemed prepared. "We have a book club every Wednesday. The theme is the city and memory. I think you'd like it." I agreed. On the way home, my phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. "Hello. Kyle." The familiar voice made me freeze. "It's me. How did you get this number?" I asked coldly. It was a new number I got after moving. Less than 10 people had it. Jake gave it to me. Her voice was tearful. I just wanted to hear your voice." I gripped the phone, the bustling streets of Port Blossom suddenly fading away. "What do you want?" "You really moved to Port Blossom?" She started sobbing. "Everyone said you were running away from me." "I'm here for work." I took a deep breath. "If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." "Wait," she said urgently. That video was made by Tina. She always liked you. She framed me to break us up." "I've already quit my job, really." "Chloe," I interrupted. "We're over. You need to move on." I hung up and stood on the sidewalk, people rushing past me. The sun was still bright, the sea breeze still salty, but the good mood from earlier was gone. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started organizing work files. Focusing on work was the best form of escape. At 8 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was Jake. "Dude, I'm sorry. His voice was full of guilt. Chloe was crying and begging, and I caved. Don't let it happen again, I said curtly. You're not to give my new number to anyone else. I know, he said quietly. Hey, she's asking for your address. What? I sat up straight. Did you give it to her? No, I swear. Jake denied it immediately. But I think she heard from someone else that you're working at a fintech company. I rubbed my temples. No secrets in a small town. It seemed Port Blossom wasn't much different. Dude, you okay? I'm fine, I said, looking at the night view from my window. She won't find me. After hanging up, I walked out onto the balcony. The lights of Port Blossom were dazzling, the ships on the distant sea like floating stars. My new life was just beginning. I wouldn't let the shadows of the past follow me here. I would be at the book club on Wednesday. Maybe that was the first real step forward. The Wednesday night book club was held at Half Sugar. When I arrived, the shop had been rearranged into a cozy salon. Sofas were placed in a semicircle, with snacks and open books on a coffee table in the middle. Sophie was adjusting a projector. Seeing me, her face lit up. You're here. She trotted over and handed me a coffee. Save this for you. Sea salt caramel latte. I took the cup, the warmth spreading through my fingers. Thanks. It's a good turnout. It's a good theme, the city in memory, she whispered. Though most of them are really here for my tiramisu. The book club was more relaxed and interesting than I'd expected. People took turns reading their favorite passages and then discussed them. When it was my turn, I chose a passage from Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities. The city does not tell its past, but contains it like the lines of a hand, written in the corners of the streets, the gratings of the windows, the banisters of the steps. After I finished, I looked up and saw Sophie watching me, her gaze soft. During the discussion, a girl with round glasses talked about her hometown's old street being demolished, sparking a lively conversation. Kyle, what about you? Sophie suddenly asked. What's your most vivid memory of your hometown? All eyes turned to me. I traced the rim of my coffee cup, choosing my words carefully. The sycamore trees, I finally said. The main street was lined with them. In the fall, when the leaves turned yellow, the whole street looked like it was on fire. What I didn't say was that my first date with Chloe had been on that street. Some memories are like coffee grounds. Even after you pour them out, they leave a trace at the bottom of the cup. After the book club, Sophie insisted on giving me a slice of tiramisu to take home. Wednesday special, she winked. Are you coming tomorrow? The walking tour group has an event on Thursday evening. I have to work late tomorrow, I declined. Just got a new project. It was true. The new Bayview Financial Center project was keeping me incredibly busy. As the risk manager, I needed to evaluate the credit policies of 3 partner banks and develop a risk control plan. Mr. Evans might have called it field training, but the tasks he gave me were anything but easy. On Friday afternoon, I was reviewing a contract when someone knocked on my office door. I looked up to see the general manager, Mr. Davis, a shrewd man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair. Kyle, I've read your progress report on the Bayview project, he said, taking a seat across from me. Good work. Thank you, Mr. Davis, I said, closing the folder. There are still a few details to iron out. Evans has spoken highly of you, Mr. Davis said, picking up my project proposal. He said you were the best risk manager he's ever mentored. Evans's first name was William. I was surprised he'd praise me like that behind my back. The Bayview project is a test, Mr. Davis said, putting down the file and looking me straight in the eye. Do well, and you'll be back at headquarters as a director next year. If you don't, he paused meaningfully. Port Blossom is a beautiful city, a nice place to live long-term. I understood his meaning. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an ultimatum. I won't disappoint you. After Mr. Davis left, I re-examined the project proposal and decided to scrap it and start over. I spent the entire weekend at the office, reanalyzing data and revising my models. On Sunday night, as I finished the last chart, I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. The new plan was more aggressive, but the risk control measures were also much tighter. At the project review meeting on Monday, my proposal was unanimously approved. Mr. Davis even clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Now that's what I expect from a headquarters guy." After the meeting, the HR director, Lisa, stopped me. "Kyle, we have a new group of clients visiting on Thursday. Mr. Davis specifically requested you to be part of the reception team." "What clients?" "Investors from Singapore. They're very interested in the Bayview project," she whispered. "Make a good impression. Mr. Davis is considering putting you in charge of Asia-Pacific business development." This sudden opportunity was both exciting and daunting. The Asia-Pacific region meant more travel, bigger challenges, and a faster track to promotion. After work, I found myself walking into Half Sugar. Sophie was grinding coffee beans behind the counter. She raised an eyebrow in surprise when she saw me. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Free on a weekday. I need a coffee that will make me smarter, I joked, sitting at the counter. Then you need my signature pour-over, she said with a smile, grabbing a glass pot. Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. Guaranteed to spark your creativity. I watched as she expertly warmed the pot, measured the beans, and poured the water in a steady stream. The aroma of coffee, with notes of citrus and jasmine, filled the air. Good news, she asked as she worked. You've got a smile in your eyes. Might be a new opportunity. I briefly told her about the Asia-Pacific business. But I'm not sure if I'm ready. Kyle, she said, sliding the coffee in front of me. Do you know how long I worked as a barista at Starbucks before I opened this place? 3 months. Everyone said I was crazy, but I felt I was ready. I took a sip of the coffee. A bright acidity bloomed on my tongue, followed by a honey-like sweetness. This coffee is amazing. See? You already have a discerning palate, she winked. You adapt to new things faster than you think. For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into my work. The Singaporean clients were very pleased with their visit, and Mr. Davis hinted that the Asia-Pacific position was very promising. I missed every Thursday walking tour, but the Wednesday book club became a fixed part of my schedule. On the last weekend of May, Sophie organized a beach barbecue. The crowd was a mix of coffee shop regulars, walking tour friends, and a few new faces. Sunshine, sand, cold beer, and Sophie's special barbecue sauce. It was all picture perfect. Try this. Sophie handed me a skewer of grilled shrimp. Secret recipe. The shrimp was tender and juicy, with a fresh taste of lemon and herbs. Delicious, I said honestly. What other hidden talents do you have? Plenty, she said, shaking her head proudly. Guitar, oil painting, I even learned a little bit of coding. So why a coffee shop? She was quiet for a moment, gazing at the distant horizon. Because a coffee shop is like a transfer station in life. People come, people go, and everyone brings a story. She turned to look at me. Like you, my story is boring. No, it's not. She took a swig of her beer. The risk manager who called off his wedding and ran away to a coastal city. That's almost too dramatic, even for a novel. I couldn't help but laugh. Now that you put it that way, it does sound like a cheesy romance drama. So, she hesitated. Do you still think about her? The sea breeze suddenly felt a bit chilly. I stared at my beer can, watching the condensation drip down the side. Sometimes, but it doesn't hurt like it used to. Sophie nodded and didn't press further. We watched the waves crash on the shore in silence, the laughter of our friends sounding distant, as if through a pane of glass. On Monday morning, I had just gotten to the office when Jake called. Dude, big news. His voice was high-pitched with excitement. Chloe and that guy are officially together. The whole office knows. I gripped the phone, waiting for the expected pang of pain. But it never came. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. How do you know? She posted a picture of them on Facebook. It's the guy from the karaoke video. Jake sounded indignant. So shameless. Good thing you didn't marry her. I opened Facebook and found Chloe's profile. There was a photo of her and the man from the video who I now saw was named Ryan. The background looked like a restaurant. She was smiling brightly, her head resting on his shoulder. The caption read, "Finally able to make it official at Ryan Chen." So his name was Ryan Chun. I put down my phone, a sense of absurdity washing over me. 7 years, 2 months of betrayal, a canceled wedding, all ending with a Facebook post. Dude, you still there? Jake's voice brought me back. Yeah, let's not talk about this anymore. I hung up and looked out the window. The sky over Port Blossom was a brilliant blue. I realized then that Chloe was well and truly in my past. At noon, I went to the park near my office to eat a sandwich. My phone buzzed. It was a Facebook friend request. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. The request was from Chloe Miller. The message attached read, "Urgent." The video was fake. I stared at the request for a full minute before hitting decline. Fake or not, it had nothing to do with me anymore. But 5 minutes later, a text message arrived. "Kyle, please add me." The video was edited by Tina. Ryan and I were just friends. She framed me because she likes you. I put down my sandwich, my appetite gone. My rational mind told me to ignore it, but curiosity won. I accepted her friend request. A flood of messages immediately came through. "You finally accepted." I found the original video. It was edited. Ryan and I weren't together then. We only started dating last month. Please just watch the original video. A video file followed. I put on my headphones and pressed play. The scene was similar to the first video, but the angle was wider. It was indeed a karaoke room. Chloe and Ryan were on the couch, but there were 4 or 5 other people around them. Chloe did sit on Ryan's lap, but only for a few seconds before getting up more like she was drunk and goofing around. The whole video was over 3 minutes long, and most of it was just the group singing and drinking. Another message. See? We didn't even kiss. Tina photoshopped that. I replied. Why are you only telling me this now? I just found out. Tina quit and left a flash drive behind. The original video was on it. Kyle, I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied and said it was only that one time. But I really didn't cheat. Ryan and I only got together after we broke up. Can you forgive me? I put down my phone and walked to the small lake in the park. A few ducks glided across the water, leaving ripples. Chloe's explanation did offer another possibility. Maybe she hadn't physically cheated, just acted foolishly while drunk. But the 2 months of secret Friday meetings, the lies. My phone rang again. This time it was Sophie. Free tonight? My friend's bookstore is having a jazz night. I replied. Sound good, what time? Chloe sent a few more messages, which I ignored. After work, I went straight to the bookstore Sophie mentioned. It was an independent shop called Paper Trails, tucked away in an old alley. Sophie was waiting for me at the entrance, wearing a pale green dress, her hair down, glowing in the evening sun. You made it, she greeted me. The show hasn't started yet. Let me show you around. The bookstore was bigger than I'd expected, with shelves reaching the ceiling. In the backyard, a small jazz band was setting up. This is Kyle. Sophie introduced me to the owner. My high school classmate. He's in risk management at a finance company. The owner, a young man with round glasses, shook my hand warmly. Sophie mentions you a lot. What does she say about me? I asked curiously. That you're a coffee drinker with a story, the owner laughed. We have a special sangria tonight. Want a glass? During the show, Sophie and I sat in the back. The smooth jazz melodies drifted on the summer breeze. Sophie's hand occasionally brushed against mine, her skin warm and dry. During the intermission, my phone lit up again. Chloe had sent a photo, a screenshot of a chat between her and Ryan from 3 months ago. Ex-girlfriend? Sophie suddenly asked. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. How did you know? The look on your face when you check your phone, she shrugged. Like you've seen a ghost. I briefly told her what had happened with Chloe. Sophie listened, sipping her sangria thoughtfully. So, what are you thinking now? I don't know, I admit it. If it were you, would you believe her? The question isn't whether I would believe her, Sophie said, putting down her glass. It's whether you're still willing to believe her. The band started playing again, a lazy blues tune. I leaned back and closed my eyes. The music washed over me. Chloe's explanation was plausible, but the lies and deceit had already created a crack that couldn't be fixed. Trust is like glass. Once broken, even if you piece it back together, the cracks are always there. I made up my mind, I told Sophie after the show. Whether the video was real or fake, we can't go back. She nodded, saying nothing. On the walk home, we walked side by side on the stone path, our shadows stretching and shrinking under the streetlights. By the way, Sophie said as we reached the corner where we parted ways. It's my birthday next Saturday. A few friends and I are going camping by the beach. You should come. Of course, I answered without hesitation. What should I bring? Just bring yourself. She smiled and waved goodbye. Good night, Kyle. Back in my apartment, I sent one last reply to Chloe. I saw the video. I wish you happiness. Then I blocked her number. Lying in bed, I thought about Sophie's question. Are you still willing to believe her? The answer was no. Not because there wasn't enough evidence, but because I had already moved on. I couldn't and didn't want to go back. Outside, the Port Blossom sky was full of stars. Tomorrow was June 1st, the official start of summer, and perhaps the official start of my new life. On Saturday morning, my alarm jolted me awake. The sky outside was overcast. The forecast predicted rain. I checked the weather for the campsite. A 50% chance of rain. After a moment's hesitation, I started packing anyway. Tent, sleeping bag, bug spray, flashlight, and Sophie's birthday gift, a hardcover edition of Invisible Cities. I'd written a short note on the flyleaf. Just as I was about to leave, my phone rang. It was Sophie. Kyle. Her voice was apologetic. The weather's looking pretty bad. We decided to celebrate at my shop instead. Are you still coming? Of course. I put down my backpack. What should I bring? Just your appetite. I made a cake. After hanging up, I looked at the book in my hand and decided to add something. I turned to the flyleaf and wrote under my original message, some cities and some people are destined to meet again. Half Sugar was closed for the day, a private party sign hanging on the door. I pushed it open, a bell chiming. The shop was simply but warmly decorated with balloons and streamers. A few tables were pushed together, laden with food and drinks. Kyle. Sophie poked her head out of the kitchen, a smudge of flour on her cheek. Find a seat, I'll be right out. There were already 7 or 8 people there. I recognized a few from the book club and walking tour. Linda greeted me warmly and offered me an iced tea. Sophie's been busy since 6 this morning, she whispered. She made a red velvet cake. Her mom's secret recipe. More people arrived, and soon the shop was full. When Sophie brought out the cake, everyone sang, "Happy birthday." She was wearing a simple white dress, her hair loosely pinned up, her cheeks flushed from the activity. "Make a wish," someone shouted. Sophie closed her eyes, her long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks. A few seconds later, she opened them and blew out the candles in one breath. 25, she announced with a grin and started cutting the cake. The party was relaxed and fun. In the late afternoon, people started to leave until it was just me and Sophie cleaning up. "I'm exhausted," she said, slumping into a chair and kicking off her sneakers. "But it was fun. Here." I handed her the wrapped gift. "Happy birthday." She took the book and carefully unwrapped it. "Invisible Cities," she said, delighted. She opened it to the flyleaf, a small smile playing on her lips as she read my note. "Some cities and some people are destined to meet again." She read aloud, then looked up suddenly. "Wait, did you go to Northwood High?" "Yeah," I said, confused. "Why?" "Me too." Her eyes widened. "I was in the honors program." "You were in Class 3B, we said at the same time, then both laughed. "No wonder you looked so familiar." Sophie jumped up excitedly. "You're on the basketball team, right?" "Yeah, backup point guard." I recalled. "And you were the valedictorian?" "That's me." She did an exaggerated curtsy. "Citywide essay competition winner, flag ceremony announcer, every teacher's pet." We laughed together, a strange sense of familiarity blooming between us. Fragments of high school memories started to piece themselves together. I did remember a girl who always got the highest grades. I just never imagined it was the same Sophie who now owned a coffee shop. "This is crazy," she said, shaking her head. "I can't believe we never recognized each other." "You've changed a lot," I said honestly. "In high school, you wore glasses, always had your hair in a ponytail, and were always carrying a stack of books. And you were skinnier back then, with a perfect jump shot," she finished for me. "I remember your class always played against ours, and you were amazing at three-pointers." We talked for a long time about high school. Outside, the rain had started pattering against the window panes. "Hey," Sophie said suddenly. "Do you remember Chloe Miller? She was in our year." I froze. "What?" "Chloe Miller, from 5A, Sophie said, not noticing my reaction. "She was really popular back then. A lot of guys had crushes on her." "Sophie," I interrupted. "Chloe is my ex-fiancée." Her jaw dropped. "Oh my God, I had no idea. You were high school classmates." "No, we met in college," I explained, my voice strained. "She told me she went to Northgate High." "She lied," Sophie said definitively. "Chloe Miller absolutely went to Northwood. I remember she even got a warning for dating when she was a senior." The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Why would Chloe lie about her high school? In the 7 years we were together, she never once mentioned that we had actually gone to the same school. "Kyle," Sophie looked at me with concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I forced a smile. "Just a little surprised." The rain outside grew heavier, and the sky darkened. A flash of lightning was followed by a loud clap of thunder. The lights in the shop flickered and then went out completely. "Power's out," Sophie said, fumbling for her phone. "Let me find some candles." In the dim light of our phones, she found a few candles under the counter and lit them. The warm candlelight chased away the darkness. "A hurricane might be coming," she said, looking at the trees being whipped around by the wind. "The Weather Service issued a blue alert this morning." "I should go," I said, getting up, "before it gets too bad." "No." Sophie grabbed my wrist. "It's too dangerous outside. The news said this hurricane is strong. They're advising people to stay indoors." As if to confirm her words, a fierce gust of wind slammed against the windows. An emergency alert blared from my phone, a hurricane orange warning, advising immediate shelter. "Looks like I'm not going anywhere," I said with a wry smile. Sophie checked a weather app. "The hurricane is expected to last until tomorrow morning," she said, looking up at me. "You don't mind staying here for the night, do you?" In the candlelight, her eyes shone like amber. I suddenly became very aware that we were alone and about to spend the night together. "I don't mind. What can I do to help?" "Help me tape up the windows," she said, handing me a roll of duct tape. "You don't want the glass to shatter in a hurricane." We spent the next half hour taping large XS across the windows and securing the back door. We left the kitchen faucet running in a thin stream. A local trick, Sophie explained, to prevent the pipes from bursting. "Hungry?" she asked when we were done. "There's still some food in the fridge. We can make a simple dinner." We cooked a simple but warm meal by candlelight, tomato and egg noodles, canned tuna, and leftover birthday cake. Sophie boiled water on the stove for tea. To the hurricane, she said, raising her teacup to mine. After dinner, we laid out sleeping bags on the floor in the safest part of the building, away from the windows. The storm raged outside, but inside, with the flickering candlelight, it felt surprisingly peaceful. So, Sophie said, curled up in her sleeping bag, Chloe never mentioned she went to Northwood? Never, I shook my head. She said she went to Northgate and then came to our university. That's weird. Sophie frowned. Why would she lie? Maybe. A terrible thought occurred to me. She didn't want me to know about her past. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. In high school, did she have a bad reputation? Sophie hesitated. I probably shouldn't be talking about people behind their backs. Sophie, please tell me. I urged. It's important. She sighed. Chloe was well known in high school. Not for her grades, but for her relationships. She went through boyfriends very quickly, and she was often dating multiple guys at once. In our senior year, there was a big scandal involving her and a junior who already had a girlfriend. She almost got expelled. My heart sank. So Chloe's history went back that far, and I had been completely clueless. Kyle. Sophie looked at me with concern. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said all that. No. Thank you for telling me. I managed a small smile. At least now I know the problem wasn't me. A particularly strong gust of wind hit the building, making a terrifying howling sound. Sophie instinctively moved closer to me. Scared? I asked. A little, she admitted. This is my first time facing a hurricane alone. I'm here, I said softly, feeling a sudden urge to protect her. It'll be okay. We were quiet for a while, listening to the storm. The candlelight cast our large, blurry shadows on the wall. You know, Sophie said suddenly, I had a crush on you in high school. What? I turned to look at her, shocked. Don't look so surprised, she laughed, giving me a light shove. It was just for a little while. At the basketball game, when you made that winning three-pointer. It was pretty cool. I had no idea. Of course you didn't. She made a face. I was a bookworm, and you were the star of the basketball team. We were from two different worlds. In the candlelight, her profile was soft but determined, her eyelashes casting long shadows. I was struck by how strange fate was. Two people who had barely crossed paths in high school were now reconnecting like this, 10 years later. Sophie, I asked softly, why did you come to Port Blossom? She was silent for a moment. Because of a failed relationship. My ex cheated on me. I fell apart, quit my job, and just ran away to this city. She gave a bitter smile. A bit of a cliche, isn't it? No, I shook my head. I get it. Then I realized this city was a good place to live, so I stayed and opened a coffee shop. Her expression brightened. Now that I think about it, I should probably thank that jerk. Otherwise, I might still be a corporate drone in some office building. We looked at each other and smiled, a silent understanding passing between us. The storm still raged outside, but it didn't seem so scary anymore. What about you? She asked. Besides Chloe, have you had any other relationships? I dated someone in college for about 6 months, I recalled. After that, I was too busy with work. I was single until I met Chloe. 7 years. That's a really long time. Yeah. I watched the flickering candle flame. It was most of my adult life. Do you regret it? I thought about the question for a moment. No. Even knowing the truth now, I don't regret the 7 years I put into it. I looked at her. I just regret not seeing her for who she was sooner. Sophie nodded, her gaze gentle. You're a good person, Kyle. You really are. Trying to give me the nice guy card? I joked. No, she said quickly, a faint blush on her cheeks. I mean, you deserve better. Our eyes met in the candlelight, and a strange electricity passed between us. Sophie was the first to look away, letting out a yawn. We should get some sleep, she said softly. We'll have a big mess to clean up tomorrow. We settled into our sleeping bags and blew out the last candle. In the darkness, the sound of the storm was even louder, but strangely, I felt a sense of peace and safety I hadn't felt in a long time. Kyle. Sophie's voice came from the darkness. Yeah. I'm glad we're reconnected. I smiled, though I knew she couldn't see it. Me too, Sophie. Happy birthday. The next morning, I was woken by the sun on my face. The hurricane had passed, leaving behind a clear, washed blue sky. Sophie was still asleep, curled up like a child. I quietly got up and went to the kitchen to see what I could make for breakfast. As I was frying eggs, I heard footsteps behind me. Smells good, Sophie said, rubbing her eyes. You can cook. Basic survival skill, I said, flipping the eggs. The coffee machine is still out, but I can make tea. We sat on the small step outside the shop entrance, eating breakfast and watching the city crews clear away fallen branches. The sun was warm on our faces, Last night's storm felt like a dream. I'll have to stay closed today, Sophie said, looking around. I need to get someone to check the wiring. I can help, I offered. My office will be closed today, too. As I spoke, my phone rang. It was an old friend from my hometown, Tom. Kyle, are you okay? His voice was full of concern. The news said a hurricane hit Port Blossom. I'm fine. I'm at friend's shop. Not much damage. That's good to hear, he said, relieved. Hey, guess who I saw yesterday? Chloe. My fingers tightened on my phone. Oh, she got married. Just last month, to that Ryan guy, Tom said in a low voice. But I hear it's not going well. Apparently, the guy has a temper. I glanced at Sophie beside me. She was happily munching on toast, the sunlight dancing in her hair. Strangely, hearing about Chloe didn't stir any emotion in me. Is that so? I said neutrally. I hope she's doing okay. You're not mad? Tom asked, surprised. After what she did to you. It's all in the past, I said calmly. I'm doing great now. After hanging up, Sophie looked at me curiously. News from your ex? Yeah, she's married. Apparently, it's not going well. How do you feel about that? I thought for a moment and answered honestly. I don't feel anything. It's like hearing about a stranger. Sophie smiled and reached out, her hand covering mine. That's when you know you've moved on. The sun shone on our joined hands, warm and bright. In that moment, I knew I was finally out of the shadows, ready for whatever came next. Sophie, I said, gathering my courage, when the shop is fixed, would you be willing to go on a real date with me? Not as friends, but as something more. Her eyes lit up, and a sweet smile spread across her face. I thought you'd never ask. A week later, Half Sugar reopened. My relationship with Sophie officially leveled up from friends to dating. Her regulars quickly noticed and offered their congratulations. One weekend at the end of June, my parents came to visit. I booked them a hotel by the beach and brought Sophie to have dinner with them. So, this is the coffee shop owner you mentioned? My mom whispered to me, though her eyes were fixed on Sophie. She's very pretty. To my relief, Sophie and my parents got along wonderfully. She brought my mom some homemade soap and listened patiently to my dad's stories about his youth. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside and said, "You have good taste this time." One evening in July, Sophie and I were lying on the beach, stargazing. I have an idea, she said suddenly. What is it? Let's combine Half Sugar with a bookstore, she said excitedly. Coffee shop downstairs, bookstore and reading area upstairs. I saw a 2-story building for rent in the Old Town district. I turned to look at her, her eyes shining in the moonlight, and I couldn't help but kiss her. Sounds amazing. Do you need an investor? Are you serious? Of course, I said, taking her hand. We could do it together. The perfect combination, a risk manager and a coffee shop owner. She laughed and threw her arms around me, and we kissed under the stars. The waves lapped gently at the shore, like a whisper from fate. Some cities and some people are destined to meet again. On a Monday morning in August, a crowd had gathered in front of the announcement board in the company lobby. I walked over with my coffee and saw a colorful poster. Annual Innovation Award nominees. Kyle Thompson, Risk Management Department. Bayview Financial Center Risk Control Model. Lisa squeezed through the crowd and clapped me on the shoulder. Congratulations. Only 3 nominees from the entire company. I had no idea. I stared at the poster, speechless. Mr. Davis nominated you himself, she whispered. I hear the big boss at headquarters is very impressed with your model. They might roll it out across the entire group. Back at my desk, I immediately messaged Sophie. She replied with a string of heart and celebration emojis, followed by, "We're celebrating tonight. I'm closing the shop early." Throughout the morning, congratulatory emails flooded my inbox. Mr. Davis even called me personally, hinting that if I won, the director of Asia-Pacific risk management position was mine. At noon, I went to the nearby park to eat my sandwich. My phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. Hello. Kyle. The familiar voice made my whole body go rigid. It's me, Chloe. We hadn't spoken in 2 months, since the incident with the edited video. I instinctively looked around, as if she might pop out from behind a corner. How did you get this number? I asked coldly. It was my work phone. Very few people had the number. I called your company and asked for it. Her voice was tearful. Please don't hang up. Just 5 minutes. What is it? I'm divorced, she said abruptly. Ryan. He's not human. I gripped the phone, saying nothing. Children were playing in the park's fountain, their laughter sharp and piercing. It's me. Chloe started sobbing. Did you see the news? That domestic abuse case last month. I did remember seeing a news report about a man in a neighboring city who had severely beaten his wife. I just never imagined it would be Ryan and Chloe. I'm sorry to hear that, I said stiffly. But you shouldn't be calling me. Kyle, I know I was wrong. Her crying grew louder. I wasn't lying about the video. Tina really did frame me. Ryan and I only got together after we broke up. Chloe, I interrupted. It's all in the past. I'm doing really well now. Please, can I see you? Just once. She begged. I'm in Port Blossom. I have nowhere to go. What? I shot up from the bench. You're in Port Blossom? Yeah. I just got here yesterday. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm staying at a motel by the train station. Kyle, I'm really at the end of my rope. I took a deep breath, my mind at war with itself. My head told me not to see her, but the years we'd shared made it impossible to be completely heartless. Just once. She continued to plead. I promise I won't interfere with your life. It's just, I don't know anyone here. Not today, I finally said. Some other time. After hanging up, I sat on the bench, my hands shaking slightly. The past I thought I had buried had just burst back into my life. I couldn't eat my sandwich. I threw it in the trash and walked slowly back to the office. I was completely distracted during the afternoon meeting, Chloe's crying voice echoing in my head. After work, I went straight to Half Sugar. Sophie was behind the counter, polishing the espresso machine. She broke into a wide smile when she saw me. Look who it is, she said, giving a playful curtsy. Mr. Annual Innovation Award nominee. I forced a smile and sat at the counter. It's been a long day. What's wrong? She asked, her sharp eyes noticing my mood. She put down her cloth. Did something happen? Chloe called. I said directly. She's in Port Blossom. She said Ryan was abusing her, and they're divorced. Sophie's expression froze. What does she want? She wants to see me, I said, rubbing my temples. She sounds like she's in a bad place. Sophie was silent for a moment, then turned and started making a coffee. Are you going to see her? I don't know, I admitted. My head says no, but you're worried about her, Sophie finished softly, sliding a latte in front of me. I get it. I looked up at her, surprised by her calm demeanor. You're not mad. Of course I'm mad, she said, biting her lip. But I also know the kind of person you are, Kyle. You won't turn your back on someone who needs help, even if that person hurt you. I took her hand, grateful for her understanding. Do you think I should see her? Yes, she said surprisingly, but on one condition. I'm coming with you. We decided to meet on Friday night, after Half Sugar closed. Sophie insisted to be on her turf, for the home field advantage. I laughed and agreed, though a sense of unease lingered. For the next few days, I focused on my work, preparing my presentation for the Innovation Award. On Thursday, Mr. Davis called me into his office to tell me that headquarters had already decided to implement my risk model in all their Asia-Pacific projects. The presentation is just a formality, he said, patting my shoulder. Get ready for a business trip to Singapore next month, Mr. Director. This news should have made me ecstatic, but the situation with Chloe cast a shadow over everything. That evening, while discussing our bookstore cafe plan with Sophie, I found my mind wandering. Hey, Sophie gently pinched my cheek. Don't let the past steal the joy from the present. I pulled her into a hug, inhaling the faint coffee scent in her hair. I'm so lucky to have you. On Friday night, we closed the shop early. Sophie had set up the scene. 3 chairs at the counter, not too intimate, but not too formal either. She wore a simple white shirt and jeans, her hair in a ponytail, looking clean and composed. Nervous? She asked, her fingers drumming on the counter. A little, I admitted. You? Terrified, she made a face. What, she throws coffee on me? I smiled and squeezed her hand. I'd take the hit for you. When the doorbell rang, we both tensed up. I want to open it. Chloe stood there, looking even thinner than I remembered, her face as pale as paper. She was wearing a simple blue dress. Her once shiny hair was now dull and dry, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Kyle, she whispered, her voice trembling. Come in, I said, stepping aside. This is Sophie, my girlfriend. Chloe's gaze snapped to Sophie. The two of them stared at each other for a few seconds. I noticed a bandage on Chloe's left wrist and a faint, healing scar near her right eye. Hello, Sophie said first, her tone even. Would you like something to drink? No. Thank you, Chloe said quietly, perching awkwardly on a stool at the counter. I sat between them, a strange buffer. Silence stretched until I finally broke it. Your injury, is it okay? Chloe looked down at her wrist, instinctively covering the bandage with her other hand. A fracture. It's much better now. She looked up, her eyes filled with tears. Kyle, I really know I was wrong. Chloe, I cut her off. Let's leave the past in the past. What kind of help do you need right now? I don't know. Tears started to fall. Ryan kicked me out. He controls all the money. I only had one bag when I left. Sophie silently passed her a box of tissues. Chloe took one, murmuring a quiet, thank you. Do you have family you can stay with? I asked. My parents. They barely speak to me after what happened with us. She sobbed. They were strongly against me marrying Ryan. I glanced at Sophie, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. The small, silent gesture warmed me. I can lend you some money for now, I said carefully. I can also help you contact a women's shelter. They can provide legal aid. I don't want your money. Chloe suddenly became agitated. I want you back. Kyle, I regret everything. Our 7 years together. Chloe, I said firmly, I'm with Sophie now. That's not going to change. Chloe's eyes darted between me and Sophie, finally landing on Sophie's face. How long have you two known each other? We were high school classmates, Sophie answered calmly. But we reconnected after Kyle moved to Port Blossom. High school classmates. Chloe's expression turned strange. Northwood High. Yes, Sophie and I said in unison. Chloe's face grew even paler. So, you know everything. Know what? I frowned. Nothing. She shot up from her stool, the legs scraping loudly on the floor. I should go. Thank you for your time. Wait. I stopped her. What do we know everything about? Chloe's lips trembled, her eyes darting nervously. In high school. All that stuff. I thought. You thought I didn't know that even back in high school you were. I suddenly understood. Cheating on everyone. Fresh tears streamed down her face. It wasn't like that. Kyle. Sophie gently placed a hand on my arm. Calm down. I took a deep breath, pushing down my anger. Chloe, the past doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you need help now, and I can offer some practical support, but that's it. Chloe's gaze fell on Sophie's hand on my arm, and her eyes turned sharp. Have you two slept together? The sudden question made the air freeze. Sophie pulled her hand back, a flicker of embarrassment on her face. That's none of your business, I said coldly. Of course it's my business. Chloe's voice rose. We were together for 7 years. For 7 years, you never even touched me. Sophie and I stared at each other in shock. The accusation was ludicrous. What are you talking about? I asked in disbelief. Did we? Chloe sneered. It was always like a chore for you. Once a month, with the lights off, over in 5 minutes. Her voice grew shriller. And now, you've only known this coffee shop woman for a few months, and that's enough. I yelled, cutting her off. Please leave. Chloe's tears were flowing freely, but her eyes were filled with hatred. You'll regret this, Kyle. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know what we had. Let us take you back to your motel, Sophie said suddenly, her tone surprisingly calm. It's late, it's not safe. I don't need your pity. Chloe grabbed her purse and ran for the door. I hate you both. The door slammed shut, the bell clanging harshly. Sophie and I stood in stunned silence. Wow, Sophie finally broke the silence. That was even more intense than I expected. I collapsed into a chair, my head in my hands. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Sophie came over and wrapped her arms around me. It's not your fault. We held each other in the empty coffee shop, the night outside as dark as ink. I felt a strange sense of catharsis. Finally, all the pretense between me and Chloe had been stripped away, leaving only the ugly truth. The injury on her wrist. Sophie said softly, it looked really bad. Yeah, I nodded. That monster, Ryan. We still have to help her, Sophie said firmly. Not because she's your ex, but because she's a person who needs help. I looked up at her, my heart filled with gratitude and love. You are incredible. Sophie smiled and ran her fingers through my hair. Come on, let's clean up. My place or yours tonight. We had just locked up the shop when my phone rang. It was a number from my hometown, but it wasn't my mom's. Hello, Kyle. A shrill woman's voice came through the phone. It was Chloe's mother. How could you do this to Chloe? She tried to kill herself because of you. My blood ran cold. What? She just called me. She said she took a bottle of sleeping pills. Mrs. Miller shrieked, hysterical. If anything happens to her, I'll haunt you for the rest of your life. Mrs. Miller, calm down. I forced myself to think clearly. Which motel is she at? We'll go right now. Sobbing Mrs. Miller told me the name of the motel and the room number. I hung up and quickly explained the situation to Sophie. Let's go. She hailed a cab immediately. The motel by the train station, right? In the car, my heart was pounding so hard, I thought it would burst. Even though I didn't love Chloe anymore, if she really did this because she saw me, I couldn't bear the thought. It's going to be okay, Sophie said, squeezing my hand tightly. She might just be putting on an act. The motel receptionist, hearing the urgency, immediately took us upstairs. There was no answer when we knocked, so a staff member used a master key to open the door. The sight inside made me gasp. Chloe was lying on the bed, her face deathly pale. On the nightstand were several empty blister packs of pills and an open bottle of wine. Chloe, I rushed over and patted her face. No response. Call an ambulance. Sophie yelled to the staff member while checking Chloe's pulse. She's still breathing. The ambulance arrived in 10 minutes. The paramedics quickly administered first aid and lifted her onto a stretcher. Sophie and I got into the ambulance with them. Are you her family? A doctor asked me. Ex-fiancée, I managed to say. She took about 20 Valium pills with alcohol. It's not a fatal dose, but she'll need her stomach pumped, the doctor said curtly. Do you have a family contact number? I gave him Mrs. Miller's number. At the hospital, Chloe was rushed into the emergency room. Sophie and I sat on a bench in the hallway, waiting. This is not your fault, Sophie said softly, holding my cold hand. I know. I replied mechanically, though I wasn't so sure. An hour later, a doctor came out and told us Chloe was out of danger and sleeping. At that moment, Mrs. Miller arrived in a taxi. She ran down the hospital corridor and, upon seeing me, lunged at me, scratching and hitting. You monster! You drove my daughter to suicide. Sophie stepped in front of me, blocking the distraught mother. Ma'am, please calm down. Chloe is going to be okay. Mrs. Miller collapsed onto a bench, wailing. Sophie and I waited until Chloe was moved to a regular room, and we were sure she was stable before quietly leaving the hospital. It was 3 a.m. when we got back to my place. I was completely drained and collapsed on the couch. Sophie went to the kitchen to make tea. Her mother is here now. She should be fine, Sophie said, bringing back the tea. Should we visit tomorrow? Yeah. I took the cup, a wave of fear washing over me. If she had actually. But she didn't, Sophie said firmly. And I don't think this was a real suicide attempt. It was a cry for help. What do you mean? She calculated the dosage to make sure it wouldn't be fatal, Sophie analyzed. And she did it right after seeing us, to make sure someone would find her. It's a classic cry for help. Her words made sense. So what she really wants is to escape Ryan and start over, Sophie nodded. She just mistakenly believed you were her only way out. The next morning, the hospital called to say Chloe was awake and stable. Sophie and I bought some fruit and went to see her. In the hospital room, Chloe was propped up in bed, still pale, but looking much better. Mrs. Miller was peeling an apple. Her expression complicated when she saw us. Mom, can you step out for a minute? I want to talk to them alone. Mrs. Miller reluctantly left. There was a moment of silence before Chloe spoke. I'm sorry. I was completely out of control last night. It's okay. We're just glad you're safe, I said carefully. Those things I said about our sex life. She looked down in shame. I made it all up. I was just so jealous I went crazy. Sophie silently handed her a glass of water. Ryan really did hit me, Chloe said, touching the bandage on her wrist. It started the first month we were married. When I tried to leave, he threatened to kill my parents. Sophie and I exchanged a look. This confirmed our theory. You need legal help, I said. You can get a restraining order, force a divorce. I'm too scared, she whispered, crying. He knows a lot of people. I have a friend who works at the Port Blossom Women's Shelter, Sophie said suddenly. They've handled many cases like this. They can protect you and your family. Chloe looked up at Sophie, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. You help me? Of course, Sophie said calmly. Every woman has the right to live free from violence. Before we left, Chloe called out to me. Kyle, I'm truly sorry. About the video. I did lie to you. Ryan and I had already started seeing each other before we broke up. I nodded. I wasn't surprised. It's all in the past. Just focus on your safety and your future now. Walking out of the hospital, the sunlight was blindingly bright. Sophie stretched and turned to me. You okay? Better than I thought. I took her hand. Thank you. For everything. You're welcome, she said, squeezing my fingers. Now, shouldn't we be celebrating your promotion? And maybe discussing our bookstore cafe plan? Our plan. I like the sound of that. Let's go, future business partner. The sun shone down on us, casting long shadows, but they couldn't obscure the path ahead. The shadows of the past would eventually fade, and the future was waiting for us to write it. The October sun streamed through the large windows of the Story Brew, casting dappled light on the wooden floor. I stood on a ladder, adjusting the today's special chalkboard, while Sophie directed from below. A little higher on the left. Perfect. Today was the grand opening of our bookstore cafe. After 3 months of hard work, the space was finally ready. A coffee bar and bestseller section on the first floor, a quiet reading area and used book exchange on the second, and a small event space for our book club. Kyle, can you help me with these cups? Sophie poked her head out of the kitchen, a smudge of flour on her cheek. She was wearing a beige apron with our logo, an open book whose pages turned into steam rising from coffee cup. I took a tray of mugs and started arranging them on a display shelf. Each one had our logo, custom-made by a local pottery studio. Nervous? I asked, noticing her hands were trembling slightly. Terrified, she made a face. What if no one comes? Impossible. I smiled, squeezing her shoulder. Did you forget how crowded it was during our soft opening? The soft opening last weekend had been a huge success. Sophie's coffee and pastries drew in a crowd of regulars from Half Sugar, and I brought in colleagues and book club friends. Our most popular item was the book and brew pairing. Customers could pick a book, and we would create a custom coffee drink inspired by it. The bell on the door chimed. I looked up to see my parents holding a large flower basket. Congratulations! My mom walked in, her eyes wide with excitement. It's beautiful, even better than the pictures. My dad placed the basket on the counter and clapped my shoulder. Good job, son. It was mostly Sophie's idea. I said honestly. The design, the menu, that was all her. Nonsense, Sophie said, wiping her hands on her apron. If it wasn't for Kyle's risk analysis, we never would have secured this prime location. My parents exchanged a proud, happy look. They had moved to Port Blossom last month, and this kind of happy family scene was becoming more common. Aunt Mary, Uncle John, you have to try our signature drinks. Sophie brought out 2 lattes. The one on the left is the bookworm latte with cinnamon and honey. The one on the right is the Oceanic Americano. It's made with a special bean that actually has a salty note. My parents sipped their coffees, their faces full of delight. I watched them, a warmth spreading through my chest. A year ago today, I was supposed to have gotten married. Instead, I had canceled everything. Now, I was standing in a shop I had helped create, surrounded by my loving parents and Sophie. We hadn't officially defined the next step in our relationship, but we were already planning our future together. The shop was just the beginning. The bell chimed again, and the first customers started to arrive. Sophie and I sprang into action. She handled the coffee bar, and I managed the bookstore while my parents happily helped greet people. The 10 o'clock opening ceremony was simple and heartfelt. We had neighboring shop owners and a few loyal customers join us for the ribbon cutting. Sophie had even prepared a short speech. The story brew is our interpretation of life and love, she said, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Both books and coffee are beautiful things that should be savored slowly. Thank you to everyone who has supported us along the way. Her eyes met mine, and they were shining with tears. I secretly made a heart shape with my hands, which earned a round of good-natured teasing from our friends. By noon, the shop was packed. My book club friends had taken over a large table, my colleagues were crowded by the window, and there were even a few strangers who had heard about us on social media. The most surprising guest was Chloe. She had finalized her divorce from Ryan last month, and with our help, she was now volunteering at the women's shelter. You guys are so busy, she said, handing me a gift box. I baked some cookies. You can give them to your customers. Thank you, I said sincerely. How have you been? Much better, she smiled, her eyes clear and steady. I'm moving to Austin next week for a new job, an office position a friend found for me. That's great, I said, genuinely happy for her. Keep in touch. She nodded, her gaze shifting to a busy Sophie. You two are perfect for each other, she said softly. I wish you all the happiness. By 3 in the afternoon, the crowd had thinned out. Sophie and I snuck into the back room for a break. She collapsed onto a small sofa, and I knelt to massage her sore shoulders. Tired? I asked softly. Exhausted, she said, her eyes closed but a smile on her face. But it was worth it. I pulled a small box from my pocket, my heart suddenly racing. It wasn't the perfect moment, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. Sophie, I said quietly, look at me. She opened her eyes. When she saw the velvet box in my hand, she sat up straight. Kyle, I got down on one knee and opened the box. Inside was a simple platinum ring with a small sapphire, as blue as the Port Blossom Sea. A year ago today, I was supposed to have my wedding. My voice trembled slightly. At the time, I thought it was the worst day of my life. But now I know it was the best gift fate could have given me. It gave me the chance to find true happiness. Tears were already streaming down Sophie's face. She covered her mouth with her hand. Sophie, will you marry me? Not because we're compatible, not because we're business partners, but because, without you, the stories have no words, the coffee has no aroma, and my life has no light. The kitchen door was suddenly pushed open, and a chorus of ahs erupted. I turned to see our parents and friends crowded in the doorway, all looking at Sophie expectantly. You guys, Sophie was laughing and crying at the same time. You knew all along. He's been planning this for a week. Even Chloe helped distract you. Amid the cheers and applause, Sophie held out her hand, and I slipped the ring on her finger. Yes, of course, yes. The cheers were deafening. I was pulled to my feet, my friends clapping me on the back. Sophie was surrounded by her girlfriends, showing off the ring. My mom was wiping away tears, and my dad was puffing out his chest with pride. The following days were like a dream. The Story Brew quickly became a local favorite. Sophie and I had a clear division of labor. She was in charge of coffee and dessert innovation, while I managed the book inventory and finances. Every night, after closing, we would share a cup of tea in the upstairs reading area, talking about our day. One evening in December, we were sitting on the step outside the shop, watching the Christmas lights on the mall across the street. Sophie leaned against my shoulder, idly twisting her engagement ring. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "About the first time we met," she said softly. "In the high school library. You came to check out an NBA magazine, and I was reshelving books." I turned to her in surprise. "You remember that?" "Of course." She smiled. "You were wearing a red jersey, your hair was a mess, and you stepped on my foot." "I have absolutely no memory of that." "That's because the only thing you could see was the basketball magazine," she said, pretending to be angry as she poked my chest. "I waited a whole week, thinking you would come back and apologize, but you never did." I wrapped my arms around her and kissed the top of her head. Well, now I can spend the rest of my life apologizing. Snowflakes began to fall, glittering like scattered stardust in the colored lights. A year ago, I had stood at a crossroads and made the most painful and most correct decision of my life. Now all those twists and turns had led to this perfect moment. "Next year," Sophie said suddenly, "we should add a children's reading corner upstairs." I looked down at her, my heart skipping a beat. "Are you saying—" "Not right now." She laughed and shook her head. "But we'll need one eventually, right?" I kissed her as the snowflakes melted on our joined hands. The aroma of coffee drifted from the shop, mingling with the scent of ink and paper. This was our scent, our story, our home.